Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to explore a phenomenon that is deceptively simple yet profoundly complex, the act of not chasing after a narcissist. At first glance, it might sound like common sense. Why would anyone pursue someone who is self-centered, manipulative, or emotionally unavailable? But the truth, as always, is deeper. Human beings are wired to seek connection, to desire validation, and to fill the voids within us with the presence of others. Narcissists exploit this innate vulnerability. They prey on our need to be seen, to be valued, to matter. And when we chase after them, when we invest our energy in someone who fundamentally cannot reciprocate, we are not simply pursuing another person. We are attempting to fill our own emptiness with someone else's reflection of us. But there is power in restraint. There is transformation in withdrawal. Choosing not to chase. Narcissist is not an act of weakness. It is an act of profound self-awareness and courage. It is a decision to reclaim your energy, to restore your boundaries, and to prioritize your own psychological integrity over fleeting validation. So today, we will examine why stepping back, why refusing to chase, is not just a strategy, but a vital path toward understanding yourself, establishing authentic relationships, and ultimately, cultivating the life you truly deserve. When you stop chasing a narcissist, something remarkable happens, though it is subtle at first. It is not an external event or a dramatic confrontation that signals the shift, but an internal transformation, one that most people fail to recognize until they have already undergone it. You see, human beings have an almost instinctive tendency to seek validation from others, to anchor our sense of self in the perception of those around us. This is particularly true in the case of narcissists, who, by their very nature, exploit this vulnerability. They are skilled at creating illusions of significance, at offering fleeting glimpses of attention that feel like reward, and yet they are fundamentally incapable of reciprocating genuine care or empathy. When we chase them, we are not merely pursuing another person. We are, in a sense, attempting to borrow significance from their reflection, hoping to feel whole through their acknowledgement. By refusing to engage in this pursuit, by consciously deciding not to chase, you reclaim something far more valuable than temporary affection, your energy. Energy is a finite resource, the very currency of your life. When it is invested in a narcissist, it is squandered on a vessel that cannot contain it. It dissipates, leaving exhaustion and confusion in its wake. But when you withdraw, when you consciously redirect that energy back toward yourself, something transformative occurs. You begin to see that your value does not reside in external approval, that your sense of identity does not require constant reinforcement from someone who cannot genuinely offer it. This detachment is not an act of bitterness or spite. It is an act of clarity and courage. Moreover, this act of stepping back illuminates the patterns that have perhaps gone unnoticed for years. You recognize the subtle manipulations, the emotional cycles of reward and withdrawal, and the ways in which you have inadvertently reinforced them. Awareness once acquired is empowering. It allows you to reconstruct your internal boundaries, to delineate clearly where your responsibility to yourself begins and ends, and where the influence of others must cease. In doing so, you create space, not just for healing, but for authentic growth. There is also a paradoxical power in detachment. While it may feel initially like giving up, in reality, it is a reclaiming of autonomy. Narcissists often define themselves by their ability to draw others into their orbit, to command attention, and to manipulate desire. By refusing to chase, you remove yourself from their gravitational pull, and in that removal, you achieve a kind of freedom that no amount of pursuit could ever grant. It is the freedom to think clearly, to act deliberately, and to engage with life on your own terms, rather than through the lens of someone else's needs or illusions. Ultimately, the decision not to chase a narcissist is not simply a defensive strategy. It is a declaration of self-respect, a profound acknowledgement that your life, energy, and dignity are yours alone to govern. It is in this act of detachment that true liberation begins, subtle yet transformative, reshaping not just your relationships, but your very sense of self. Refusing to chase a narcissist often leads to an unexpected discovery. Silence itself becomes an instrument of power. In our culture, we are taught to respond, to react, to engage, to make our presence felt through words and actions. Yet with a narcissist, the usual rules of interaction are inverted. They thrive on attention, on the energy of pursuit, and on the emotional responses that others provide. Every reaction you offer feeds the illusion of significance they maintain, reinforces their sense of control, and perpetuates a cycle in which your energy is consumed. In this context, silence is not merely the absence of speech. It is a deliberate choice to reclaim authority over your own mind and your own emotions. When you withdraw, when you refuse to chase or respond impulsively, you create a void that is profoundly unsettling for the narcissist. They are accustomed to constant validation and manipulation. Your absence interrupts their expectations. Yet for you, this silence is not emptiness. It is a space for reflection, for introspection, and for the cultivation of self-awareness. It allows you to observe the patterns that were previously obscured, to recognize the ways in which their behaviors may have conditioned you to doubt your own instincts, and to regain a sense of clarity about what is truly valuable in your life. Moreover, silence communicates a message more potent than words ever could. A narcissist relies on confusion, on drama, and on emotional turbulence to maintain influence. By stepping back and withholding engagement, you assert a boundary without confrontation, without anger, and without the exhausting effort of persuasion. This is not passive behavior. It is active, intentional, and strategic. The absence of pursuit signals strength, self-respect, and an understanding that your attention and energy are not commodities to be exploited. In essence, your quiet refusal becomes a mirror that reflects their behavior back upon them, exposing the futility of their manipulations without you ever uttering a single defensive word. Silence also fosters resilience. In the absence of constant emotional stimulation, you are given the opportunity to reconnect with your own values, to nurture your sense of self-worth independently of external validation. It is a reclaiming of autonomy, a step toward the realization that life is not about controlling or appeasing others, but about cultivating integrity, self-discipline, and clarity of purpose. In this space, you begin to see that true influence stems not from chasing or reacting to the whims of a narcissist, but from grounding yourself in your own principles and maintaining consistency in your own behavior. Ultimately, choosing silence over pursuit is not withdrawal from life. It is an engagement with life on your own terms. It is a conscious decision to prioritize your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being above the transient desires of someone incapable of genuine reciprocity. It is a declaration that your presence, your energy, and your attention are not instruments to be manipulated, but treasures to be honored. In this deliberate stillness, the quiet voice of self-respect speaks louder than any frantic chase ever could. When we chase a narcissist, we often do so at the expense of our own self-worth, though the process is insidious and slow. Human beings are naturally wired to seek connection, approval, and recognition from others. In healthy relationships, this mutual exchange can reinforce our sense of value, providing affirmation without compromising our integrity. But with a narcissist, this dynamic is distorted. Their attention is transactional, fleeting, and contingent upon your compliance with their needs and desires. Each effort to gain their validation, each attempt to be seen, liked, or loved, is met with inconsistency, manipulation, or outright disregard. Over time, this erodes the foundation of your self-respect. Chasing a narcissist creates a cycle of self-devaluation. You begin to measure your worth against their approval, constantly adjusting your behavior, suppressing your own needs, and silencing your authentic self. The irony is stark. The more you pursue them, the more you relinquish control over your own identity. You begin to internalize their dismissive behavior as a reflection of your inadequacy, when in reality, it is a projection of their own deficits. This internalization can manifest in anxiety, self-doubt, and a pervasive sense of emptiness. Your energy, your time, and your emotions are invested not in the growth of your own life, but in the maintenance of an illusion that can never truly satisfy you. Yet the moment you stop chasing, a subtle but profound shift occurs. Withholding pursuit is not simply a refusal to engage, it is a reclamation of your intrinsic value. It is a recognition that self-worth is not something granted by external validation, but something cultivated internally. By stepping back, you assert that your identity, your dignity, and your energy are not negotiable commodities. This act of boundary setting restores a sense of agency that may have been diminished over years of accommodating someone incapable of genuine reciprocity. It is in this reclamation that real empowerment begins. Moreover, recognizing the connection between pursuit and diminished self-worth illuminates patterns that often go unnoticed. It becomes clear how much emotional labor has been expended for little or no return, and how much of your own potential has been diverted towards sustaining someone else's ego. Awareness of this dynamic is transformative because it allows you to redirect your focus toward relationships and endeavors that honor your value rather than undermine it. It is a call to cultivate connections built on mutual respect, authenticity, and reciprocity. Ultimately, choosing not to chase a narcissist is a radical affirmation of self-respect. It is an acknowledgement that your worth is inherent, not contingent upon another person's fleeting attention. The act of withdrawal is not a concession or a surrender. It is a deliberate, courageous stand for your own psychological integrity. By refusing to chase, you protect the core of who you are, you restore balance to your emotional world, and you create the space necessary for genuine growth and meaningful connection. In this way, the decision not to pursue is both an act of self-preservation and a declaration of your intrinsic dignity that no narcissist has the power to diminish. One of the most subtle yet powerful realizations when dealing with a narcissist is understanding the illusion of control. At first, it seems almost instinctual to believe that through persistence, charm, or careful strategy, we might influence or change their behavior. After all, human relationships often operate on negotiation, compromise, and effort. Yet, when it comes to a narcissist, the conventional rules of influence break down entirely. They are fundamentally oriented toward their own self-interest, rarely perceiving or valuing the desires, feelings, or boundaries of others. To believe that your energy, attention, or emotional labor can shape them is to invest in a fantasy that exacts a steep psychological toll. The illusion of control is dangerous because it disguises itself as hope. We convince ourselves that if we try harder, communicate better, or anticipate their needs, the narcissist will respond with genuine affection, recognition, or change. Each minor acknowledgement or fleeting sign of attention reinforces this belief, keeping us tethered to a cycle of pursuit that benefits them far more than it benefits us. What we often fail to notice is that our attempts at influence rarely alter the narcissist's core behavior. Instead, they temporarily satisfy their need for attention while simultaneously conditioning us to expect validation from external sources. In essence, the pursuit feeds their ego while diminishing our autonomy. By stepping back and refusing to chase, we confront this illusion head-on. We begin to see clearly that control was never in our hands, and the responsibility for their behavior does not lie with us. This realization is uncomfortable precisely because it challenges deeply ingrained beliefs about causality, fairness, and personal responsibility. Humans are wired to seek patterns and to feel accountable for outcomes, even when circumstances are beyond our influence. Narcissists exploit this tendency, creating a distorted perception that we can fix them or earn their genuine regard through effort. Recognizing that control is illusory is the first step in liberating ourselves from this cycle of manipulation. Furthermore, relinquishing the illusion of control allows for genuine empowerment. True influence is not about changing someone else. It is about reclaiming authority over your own mind, emotions, and choices. By ceasing to chase, you redirect your energy from attempting the impossible to cultivating what is achievable: your own integrity, your emotional health, and your capacity for authentic relationships. You begin to act not out of fear, neediness, or obligation, but from a grounded sense of self-worth. This shift transforms the dynamic entirely. No longer are you at the mercy of someone else's whims. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity and strength. Ultimately, understanding the illusion of control is liberating because it clarifies the truth that your life, energy, and attention are yours alone to govern. You cannot make a narcissist love, respect, or value you, but you can control how you respond, where you invest your energy, and what behaviors you accept in your life. Recognizing this distinction is both humbling and empowering. It frees you from the emotional labyrinth of pursuit, allowing you to live deliberately, maintain boundaries, and focus on connections that are reciprocal, meaningful, and life-affirming. In this way, letting go of the fantasy of control is not surrender. It is the cornerstone of freedom, self-respect, and authentic growth. When you choose not to chase a narcissist, one of the most profound consequences is the space it creates for healing, though this healing is often a side effect rather than the explicit goal. In the pursuit of a narcissist, energy is constantly diverted outward, towards someone whose emotional needs are insatiable and whose capacity for empathy is limited. Your focus is consumed by their moods, their reactions, and the ever-shifting standards they impose. Over time, this external orientation leaves little room for self-reflection, self-care, or the reconstruction of your own identity. You become enmeshed in a cycle that rewards compliance and punishes independence, and the very act of maintaining your emotional equilibrium becomes a struggle. By withdrawing from pursuit, you begin to reclaim that lost space. This withdrawal is not passive, it is intentional, a conscious decision to stop allowing your energy to be dictated by someone incapable of mutual regard. In the absence of constant engagement, you find moments to observe your own thoughts, feelings, and patterns of behavior. You begin to notice the ways in which you have accommodated someone else at the expense of yourself, and this awareness is the first step toward genuine recovery. Healing in this context is not dramatic. It is subtle, cumulative, and deeply transformative. One of the most striking aspects of this process is how it exposes the depth of resilience that has always existed within you. Without the constant pull of the narcissist's demands, you are free to explore who you are when you are not performing, pleasing, or negotiating for attention. You discover strengths, preferences, and values that may have been obscured under layers of accommodation. You recognize that your well-being is not contingent upon external approval, and this realization fosters a renewed sense of autonomy and self-respect. Healing also emerges in the form of clarity. When you step back from pursuit, you are able to analyze the relationship with objectivity. Patterns that once seemed inexplicable become visible. The cycles of reward and withdrawal, the subtle manipulations, and the emotional toll that went largely unacknowledged. With clarity comes empowerment. You are no longer at the mercy of confusion, guilt, or the compulsion to fix the unfixable. Instead, you can set boundaries informed by understanding rather than reaction, and you can choose engagement that is deliberate rather than coerced. Moreover, this healing extends beyond emotional repair. It fosters growth. Freed from the exhausting cycle of pursuit, your energy can be redirected toward personal development, meaningful connections, and life pursuits that genuinely resonate with your values. The narcissist, by their very nature, cannot facilitate this growth. They only illuminate what has been neglected within yourself. In stepping back, you are not abandoning life or love. You are choosing a form of engagement with the world that is authentic, reciprocal, and life-affirming. Ultimately, the decision not to chase a narcissist is a form of silent revolution. Healing is not the primary objective. It is the inevitable result of reclaiming your energy, establishing boundaries, and affirming your own value. In choosing yourself over the pursuit of someone incapable of genuine reciprocity, you open the door to restoration, growth, and the profound satisfaction of living with integrity and clarity. When you stop chasing a narcissist, something remarkable occurs. You begin to reclaim your own power, and in doing so, you inadvertently become the prize. This idea may seem paradoxical at first. After all, the cultural narrative often emphasizes pursuit, the idea that attention and effort must be expended to earn affection, respect, or recognition. With a narcissist, however, this conventional wisdom fails spectacularly. Their attention is fleeting, conditional, and designed to manipulate. No amount of chasing will secure authentic connection. Yet, by stepping back, by refusing to engage in their manipulative dynamics, you signal something far more powerful, self-respect, autonomy, and emotional integrity. When you cease the chase, you are no longer validating their ego or participating in their games. Your energy is redirected inward toward your own growth, purpose, and well-being. This shift is not just practical, it is profoundly magnetic. People, whether narcissists or not, are drawn to those who operate from a place of self-possession and clarity. When you no longer seek approval, you begin to command it implicitly. By valuing yourself first, you create a standard that others are naturally compelled to recognize. The irony is that the very act of stepping back, which might initially seem like withdrawal, actually enhances your presence, your allure, and your influence. Furthermore, becoming the prize is not about arrogance or manipulation. It is not a strategy to make someone regret their actions or to assert dominance. Instead, it is the natural outcome of cultivating self-respect and emotional independence. A narcissist thrives on imbalance. They seek to dominate, to control, and to extract attention. When you establish boundaries and prioritize your own integrity, you disrupt this imbalance. Your refusal to chase exposes the unsustainability of their manipulations and demonstrates, without words, that your energy is not up for grabs. This demonstration of strength is more impactful than any confrontation. It communicates value through action rather than argument. Another important aspect of this transformation is the effect it has on your relationships as a whole. When you embody self-respect, others are compelled to respond to the authentic version of you. You no longer invest in hollow dynamics or conditional connections. Instead, you attract interactions that are reciprocal, meaningful, and life-affirming. This is not coincidence. It is the natural consequence of living in alignment with your values and refusing to subordinate yourself to someone else's distorted needs. By prioritizing your own worth, you create a gravitational field that draws in people and opportunities that reflect your integrity. Ultimately, the journey of refusing to chase a narcissist is a journey toward reclaiming yourself. The transformation is subtle yet profound. Your self-respect, emotional independence, and clarity of purpose render you inherently valuable. You no longer seek validation externally, and in that liberation, you paradoxically become the prize that everyone recognizes. This is the ultimate irony and the most empowering lesson. When you stop chasing, when you invest in yourself instead of another, you embody the very qualities that are universally compelling: strength, dignity, and unwavering self-worth.